D.I.C.E or D.I.C.E. We chose the standard of examining experiences and perspectives of significant individuals and groups during an era of U.S. history. We chose General Sherman and his march to the sea, outlining it first with our description of the, in this case, a painting that we were kind of breaking down. So we've got interactions, or I'm sorry, we've got the description of civilians, including women and children, shown carrying their possessions, fleeing their homes. They have looks of terror and disbelief as to what is happening. And the now freed slaves look a little confused as they are uncertain as to where to go. Union soldiers plunder and pillage the city. Smoke and flames of the burning city of Atlanta envelop the landscape, and General Sherman looks on silently carrying out his plan. Then we move down to our interactions. We've got some families pleading with Union forces to spare their homes and possessions. Slaves, some of them are joyous as they are now free, and many of them choose to follow Sherman's army, fearing retaliation from the local populace after the army departs from Atlanta. We compared this particular painting with a picture that appears in our actual text, and when evaluating that, we decided that the painting is much more accurate of Sherman's ethos of total war on the South relative to the picture that appears in our text. So we did a little compare and contrast. So this would be an example of what we would expect the students to produce as well as present back to the class. So we break them up into groups, give them each different pictures or paintings to break down and present.
You bring up a good point with again, like the.
All right, so our standard was investigate and describe the transformation of energy from one form to another. We decided to focus on thermal energy. So the D for D.I.C.E is describe. We decided to have the kids start off with an inquiry activity. We had a container that on one side had cold ice water, the other side had boiled hot water. Beforehand, they are going to predict what they think is going to happen when we pull up the divider. After we are going to pull up the divider, we're going to have them describe and draw what they saw take place. Some of them are going to say the colors are going to mix, it's going to be purple. It's just nice to see what they think is going to happen. The I was for interactions. This is when the students are going to describe what actually took place in the tank. They're going to talk about the cold water and the hot water and what the two did when they explain it.
And then for comparing and contrast for C, the students will compare and contrast what they saw in the demonstration with the article that they read from Discovery Education. And then for E, which is evaluation, we had a couple of questions like, what do you think is the intended purpose of the image or demo? What does the demo represent, does the demo represent the reading article? And what would you change, or how could you explain convection in the atmosphere or Earth's layers?
The reason we chose those questions is the demonstration had to do with convection taking place in water. The article was convection taking place in the atmosphere, so we wanted to put both of them in there. That's why the last question was talking about the atmosphere, Earth's layers. Convection takes place in so many places, so we decided to throw a few things at them. We know at this point in the curriculum they haven't gotten to all of that yet, but just to see what they think or if they know any prior knowledge about it.
So we would use this our example and the post activity because they didn't have to have prior knowledge. I think for this, for the way we did it, to be able to do the comparison and contrasting in the evaluations, because it's asking, do you think this accurately connects with the text, and what would you add or omit if you wanted to make it more, so this would be a post. So the standard is describe the issue that divided Republicans during early Reconstruction. And so we chose a political cartoon, which I'm pretty sure I've seen out of the Gateway U.S. History book for preparing for EOC. So I think this would be a good way to choose something like this that they might see on the EOC test to get some practice with that skill. And so for describe, it's basic colors and what objects and people are represented. So we have the white lady, the KKK, former slaves, and a skull. And then the next one was the interactions. And so how were the interactions, and so we modeled it on this one. So we said how the white lady and the KKK were standing over the group of a former slave's family. It looks like there's a child holding a skull. The next one is compare and contrast. So it said to compare it to text, so I'm assuming that's textbook text and or the text in the image itself, which you can't see it. But it says the Union as it was. It said it's a white man's government, a lost cause, and worse than slavery. And they're huddled down there and they're massive. And so what similarities do the images share to the text? Resistance to the Reconstruction Amendments and the ending of slavery. What difference does the image and text share? Dominance and submission. How accurately was it portrayed? Based off what they've already learned on the content, so very accurately. And then evaluations, what could you take out or add that would change the meaning of it? And so I think as far as that, we evaluate the fact that the lost cause part of it wasn't exactly true, because even though the white league and the KKK existed, you did have the radical Republicans fighting for their rights. So if you add as a radical Republican trying to help this group, it would change the meaning of it. Then we figured after they do this in table groups that it would be good to hang it on the wall and even have the other groups walk around and use text graffiti to respond to everybody else's answers. Did they agree? Did they find something different? And then after the groups go through the text graffiti process and come back as a whole class and discuss what did another group find that you didn't find, what kind of things was everybody in agreement about, so on and so forth, and then evaluate it that way. A great idea that was given in a group yesterday during the describe a picture. So yesterday when we were describing a picture, we were using poets, et cetera, that it would be awesome to have pictures like this, and then you have people describe it as some person in history. So describe it as a former slave, or describe it as a radical Republican, or describe it from the Southern Democrats' point of view. And so that would be awesome to be able to do that throughout with propaganda posters and political cartoons, because it gets them thinking in the mindset of some historical person. That's it.
Our standard was recognize the consequences of the loss of biodiversity due to catastrophic events, climate changes, human activity, and the introduction of invasive non-native species. That's quite a mouthful. So we just chose one of them. We happen to have someone at our table, Jennifer, whose family is from Hawaii. So she came up with the idea of using the Hawaii lava flow because she actually has pictures from her family and friends. So our classroom is in groups of 3 to 4 students. So all students or all groups would receive 3 pictures. The first picture would be the eruption of the volcano, obviously. The second one would be the lava flow over a plantation, such as a pineapple plantation, I think you said, or over the street, over a road. And then the third picture is the lava flow going into the ocean. And then now, this is where we're actually going to come into D.I.C.E.
So at the tables, they would have, they would all have a dice, like so that you made, and they would have, thank you.
D.I.C.E. and then pick up and clean up.
So they would roll the dice, and two on their table. So that would be each person's role. They would roll the dice, and if they got a D, they would describe or use phrases or words to the words that we've already used in the lesson, they know the vocabulary words, to describe the loss of biodiversity. And if somebody rolled an I, they would redirect to describe interactions of the loss of biodiversity for non-humans. You can talk about for humans or non-humans because it does affect both. So how it affected non-humans, we basically had a discussion about at our group with maybe the lava may kill the animals or kill their habitats. And then if you roll the C, they would introduce pictures of maybe the forest fire.
We want them to compare a forest fire versus a lava flow.
Just compare and contrast first, and then they can find the pictures to compare how the destruction of a fire would be, comparing it to the loss of biodiversity and the magma flow. And then your E would be your evaluation, primary and secondary succession. Evaluate the lava forest compared to the primary and secondary, or are they both the same? If they're the same, what is an example that you can think of that's not shown? You can get a picture or a visual or maybe a video with your device. And